The Silent King, the last ruler of a dynasty that once commanded the galaxy, enemy of the old ones, and the guy who wears a fucking katana as a cape.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
He is one of the most requested characters to Powerscale, and as you're about to see in this installment of Powerscaling Peeps, this metallic menace is one broken skeleton boy. This video continues our Xenos Powerscaling run, which we started with the Quarks. After seeing how much you guys liked that one, I figured, why stop there? If this video does well enough, we'll keep this series rolling with the most highly requested Xenos character or faction next. So if you want to see the Phoenix Lords, Ivrain, Shadow Sun, or another shiny skeleton boy, hit that like button and drop a comment below. In today's video, we're going to break down who the Silent King is, his powers, weapons, and abilities, his greatest feats, and finally, how he stacks up against the rest of the 40K universe. Will the Silent King prove himself beyond even the Catan? Make your bets, people. Make your bets. Because as always, my favorite herd, it's time to power scale. The Silent King, Zarek, was born into the Zarek Han dynasty, whose rulers traditionally held the title of Silent King. By the time Zarek came to power, the Necron-Tier Empire was already locked in a long and brutal war against the Old Ones, an ancient species that dominated the galaxy through their mastery of the warp and genetic creation. This war began when the Necron-Tier, brilliant yet cursed with diseased bodies and fragile lifespans, due to their radiation-filled sun, which made even colonizing the stars a torment,
That's rough, buddy.
sought out the Old Ones, begging them to share the secret of immortality. When the Old Ones refused, the Necron-Tier were consumed by rage, declaring war on their ancient rivals in a desperate bid to claim eternal life by force. After countless defeats at the hands of the Old Ones and their creation's other warp-wielding species, Zarek, driven by desperation, made a terrible decision. He allied with the Catan, godlike beings of living star energy that feasted on light and life itself. Convinced by one such entity, named the Deceiver, and ignoring the warnings of his closest advisors, Zarek agreed to undergo biotransference, the process of transferring his people's minds into bodies of living metal. I mean, come on, dude. The guy's name is the Deceiver. Maybe, just maybe, you shouldn't trust him. But hey, I'm just a cow. Maybe I don't know everything. Oh, you're telling me he tricked you? Wow, I'm so surprised.
You should, you're an idiot. You need to consider suicide.
Through this biotransference, the Necron-Tier became the Necrons. Immortal, tireless, and soulless. Though the Necrons now possessed unmatched power and technology, Zarek soon realized the price of immortality. His people were now enslaved to the Catan, who ruled as gods over their metallic servants.
I've made a terrible mistake.
Still, the alliance proved effective. Together, the Necrons and Catan waged the war in heaven and finally brought down the Old Ones, ending an era of cosmic warfare that reshaped the galaxy itself. But Zarek had been biding his time. Throughout the final stages of the war in heaven, the Silent King watched the Catan grow arrogant and complacent. He knew that to challenge them at their height would be suicide. But after the Old Ones' defeat, the Catan were weakened and distracted by their own triumph. That was when the Silent King struck. In their arrogance, the Catan did not realize their danger until it was too late. The Necrons unleashed the unimaginable energies of the living universe through weapons so powerful that even the star gods could not withstand them. Though the Catan were immortal, bound to the very fabric of reality, they were each shattered into thousands of fragments. The Silent King had foreseen this, and so each shard was bound within the extra-dimensional space of a Tesseract labyrinth, imprisoned for eternity. The cost of victory was staggering, though. Millions of Necrons perished and the entire Triarch was destroyed, all save the Silent King himself. But the Necrons were free once more, masters of their destiny and executioners of their former gods. With the Catan shattered and the Old Ones gone, Zarek saw the galaxy falling into ruin. The Necrons had won, but their empire was crumbling. New species, like the Eldar, had begun to rise, and knowing that in their weakened state, they could not hope to face them, Zarek ordered his people into the Great Sleep. to await a more favorable age. Racked with guilt for damning his people to a soulless eternity, Zarek destroyed the command protocols that bound all Necrons to his will and departed the galaxy entirely. Aboard his colossal tomb ship, he ventured into the void between galaxies, seeking redemption and purpose. For millions of years, he wandered in silence until he encountered the Tyranids, realizing the threat they posed, that if they consumed all organic life, the Necrons could never reverse biotransference. The Silent King returned to the Milky Way galaxy, determined to unite his fractured people once more. So what has Mr. Silence been up to lately? His most recent appearance in 40K was in the book The Silent King, the final book in the Dawn of Fire series. This book was centered around the Paranexus conflict, and in it, the Silent King led a massive counterattack that dealt a vicious blow to the Imperium, and he even almost had an encounter with Mr. Gilliman himself. Before moving on, I kinda want to discuss the Dawn of Fire series, which I consider, and this may be kind of a hot take, the definition of mid. The series spans 9 books chronicling the Indominus Crusade, blending overlapping plotlines, imperial faith, and political maneuvering. Sounds pretty cool, right? Wrong. To me, it reads more like an anthology than a cohesive narrative, juggling dozens of subplots that never fully resolve. Kinda sounds familiar. Yes, I'm comparing them directly to the Horus Heresy anthologies. And if you remember those books, they were pretty goddamn bad. Or at least a majority of them were bad. I don't want to say all of them are bad because there are a few treasures, like Shadows of Treachery or Age of Darkness. Those books are pretty damn peak. But the rest of them, you guys can kind of agree with me, are just kinda there. And just like those anthologies, the Dawn of Fire series makes the same mistakes. Plots like the Hand of Abaddon and the Star Child just kind of evaporate in the final book and go absolutely nowhere. And why the hell did they name the third book The Wolf Time? Leman Russ doesn't even appear, which is supposed to be the time when he returns. But hey, it's Gav Thorpe, so I'm not exactly surprised. I'm thinking about what I just said, and I think I'm gonna get a lot of shit for that comment, aren't I? Oh boy. Here come the hate comments. Sorry guys, that was a cow take. But I would like to remind everyone, before moving on, that I'm simply a cow, and therefore you can't get mad at me, guys. Come on, I just eat grass all day. You can't get mad at a bovine. So with my Dawn of Fire rant out of the way, let's get back to the Silent King and move on to his powers, abilities, and weapons, and see just how powerful this Skeleton King truly is. Before we even talk about the Silent King, we need to understand just what it means to be a Necron, because that alone sets the stage for how ridiculously powerful he is. So what is a Necron body? When the Necron tier underwent biotransference, they traded their decaying flesh for perfect immortal machine bodies. Each was a self-repairing, hyper-advanced synthetic form made of a living metal known as necrodermis. Necrodermis is a material capable of self-healing, shape-shifting, and absorbing energy. It's so durable that even orbital bombardments or multiblasts often fail to permanently destroy it. Damage that would vaporize a human or space marine is often little more than an inconvenience to a Necron. And that's before we even factor in their reanimation protocols, a technological miracle that allows Necrons to literally reassemble themselves after destruction. These advanced auto-repair systems built into their living metal bodies allow them to recover from even catastrophic damage. If a Necron is critically destroyed, it can phase out, teleporting its mind and body to the nearest tomb complex or ship, to be repaired or reforged. Tear one apart, melt it down, it doesn't matter. As long as the core systems remain intact, it can get back up in seconds. Then, we have the higher Necron castes, the nobles and overlords, beings who retain full awareness, command hierarchies of lesser Necrons, and are equipped with individualized war gear that rivals the relics of the Imperium. Some of these Necrons, like Emotech the Stormlord, have regeneration so advanced that they can recover from wounds faster than an Astartes can afflict them. Others, like Traz in the Infinite, Or can the Diviner manipulate time, space, and probability itself as if they were simply changing the channel? We're talking about beings who can split their consciousness into multiple subminds to command vast armies simultaneously, slow their perception of time to a crawl reacting in microseconds, predict the future through complex chronometric simulations, hack into enemy systems faster than those systems can even register they've been attacked, move with speed and precision that makes even transhuman reflexes look sluggish. That's the average high-tier Necron Lord.
Well, that's just silly.
Now Zarek, the Silent King, is 2 steps above that. This is seen in the 9th edition Necron Codex. During the nightmarish transition of biotransference, it was Zarek who emerged with the most powerful and advanced of all the bodies gifted to the newly fashioned Necron race. His neurological and sensory architecture, while wholly synthetic, is more advanced and precise than anything flesh and blood can emulate. This is canon confirmation that Zarek possesses the most advanced and powerful Necron body ever created. That means he is more durable than any Overlord or Cryptek, he has faster regeneration than any existing Necron Lord, and he is smarter, faster, and more measurably powerful than beings who can already run galactic scale simulations in real time. To put that in perspective, Necrons, like Orican the Diviner, can literally see into the warp, perceive the influence of chaos as visible patterns of corruption, and can reverse time to correct mistakes he's made. And yes, he can use this on enemies like he's literally a fucking time wizard. Zarek's mind is canonically superior to that. Hold on 1 second, I feel my cow brain taking over. I would absolutely love to power scale all the higher Necron Lords eventually, like Orican the Diviner or Emotech the Stormlord, because some of these guys are so goddamn cool it's insane. For example, Orican one time uses an ability where all the stars are right, allowing him to briefly ascend to Cthulhuhood. These guys are cool as fuck, and I would highly recommend checking these guys out. The Remembrancer and Mr. Bones have some great videos out there if you guys want to go further down the cow hole. But back to the Silent King. He also once held direct control over the entire Necron race, a civilization numbering in the quadrillions across millions of tomb worlds. To even process that much data, let alone command them, implies a analytical capacity on par with or slightly above the godlike abilities of the Emperor of Mankind. And we're not even at his gear yet, fellas. Let's start by discussing the giant Roomba the Silent King rides into battle. The Dais of Dominion, a colossal floating war throne powered by a shard of Nyadrazatha, the Burning One, a fragment of a Catan god. This is an artifact so powerful that its mere presence warps reality itself. The dais is equipped with temporal shielding that can dispel any incoming attack, not some attacks, any. That's directly from the Necron 9th edition Codex. It also has dolmen gate generators that can open portals directly into the webway, allowing Zarek to move entire armies through extra-dimensional tunnels outside of the warp. And finally, the dais is capable of anti-warp nullification fields. This broken Roomba can suppress or outright banish psychic powers or the warp in general. To most factions, this is effectively the same as having a personal Geller field that eats the warp for breakfast. Then we come to his weapons. Zarek wields the Scepter of Eternal Glory, a weapon that channels the raw power of the Burning One, the same Catan that fuels his throne. It's described as capable of unleashing bursts of annihilating energy, potent enough to erase targets at both the molecular and energetic levels. He also carries triarchal menhir constructs, 2 massive hovering obelisks that accompany him into battle, each armed with energy weapons that rival Necron Doomsday cannons. These are floating monuments of destruction that can extend his power field and amplify his energy output exponentially. And even crazier, they can absorb enemy fire. And finally, his last weapon, the ultimate flex, and in my opinion, the most BIMP thing of all time. Zarek literally wears the flayed skin of a Catan as a cloak.
Oh my god, he's so goddamn cool!
You guys have to admit that's pretty fucking cool. Like, he literally wears a Catan as a cloak. If you saw this guy in public, you'd be like, sheesh, that's style, that's style. Additionally, his very body is crafted from Catan necrodermis, the living metal of a star god. That makes him effectively resistant to warp corruption, capable of self-healing from any wound, and far beyond any mortal concept of durability. When you combine all of this, you're looking at a being that is functionally immortal and self-repairing, capable of processing information across galactic scales, resistant or flat-out immune to warp-based attacks, and possessing Catan-grade durability and energy output. Like, what the hell, Games Workshop? This guy's kinda crazy. He's been awake and active for over 60 million years, unlike most Necrons who slumbered during that time period. That's 60 million years of studying the galaxy, collecting lost technologies, and experimenting with Catan shards. If knowledge is power, then Zarek is arguably one of the most powerful minds in Warhammer 40K history. Compared to even the greatest Necron lords, Imhotep, Orican, and Trazyn, Zarek stands above all of them in every measurable category: intellect, command, and physical superiority. Imhotep can regenerate faster than Hellbrick can wound him, Orican can alter timelines, Trazyn can capture beings like Pokemon, and theoretically, Zarek should be able to do all this, but at a way higher level. So for a guy this powerful, what feats does he have? He should have some of the most insane feats of all time, right guys? Right?
There's nothing.
Oh boy, you're kidding. Yes, unfortunately, the Silent King does not really have any feats. He has two which we're about to discuss, but not much outside of that. He almost fought Gilliman during the Dawn of Fire series, but a stupid Eldar Farseer cockblocked us, which would have been the perfect fight to truly see his power level, but alas, here we are yet again speculating. So what are these two feats? Well, first, according to the 9th edition Necron Codex, the mirth of all cruel things was Niadra Zatha, who was called the Burning One, immolating glee and the breath of the infinite pit. All things were its kindling, for its will was the searing that blackened the strands of eons, and its ravenous touch no thing of the real nor the echo realm might endure. It was the pyre of the labyrinth, the torch of the ziggurats lost, the reaping winds of the ember blight. How came that thing onto its end? No record speaks, but that a single etching upon a single wall, upon a single world, shows the Silent King himself laying the spear onto its molten heart. This passage depicts the Silent King slaying Niadra Zatha, a full Catan, not a mere shard. On paper, that's an absurdly impressive feat, taking down a godlike stellar entity capable of unmaking reality itself. However, the only record of this event is a single etching on a wall found on some forgotten world, meaning we can't really confirm whether it was a literal event, a symbolic depiction, or perhaps ancient propaganda glorifying the king's reign. Still, for the sake of the argument, let's assume that event did happen. Even if we don't interpret it as him fully annihilating a complete Catan, the fact that he could engage such a being at all and land the decisive blow is staggering. It suggests that the Silent King possessed durability, tactical brilliance, and raw power approaching Catan level capability. For context, like we've discussed, these entities once consumed suns and feasted on life across the galaxy. To do so much as wound one is something beyond the reach of most beings in 40k, and if he was truly able to destroy it, then gosh by golly, that is one insane showing. The second feat he has is from the White Dwarf publication 483, regarding the Paranexus. On numerous occasions, the Silent King descended to the battlefield, strengthening Necron forces with his presence, but also committing incredible feats of godlike power to remind watching nobles that their majestic ruler was amongst them. At Vordreas, he cast down the walls of Forge Primus with a wave of his hand. On Foy Yodelis, he faced down the Warlord Titan Indomitor, rising to face the Princeps before unleashing an octinic beam of cosmic power that cleaved the God Engine in two. From this we can gather two things about the Silent King. The first feat from this excerpt I feel like must be taken though with a grain of salt. When he cast down the walls of Forge Primus with a wave of his hand, it can mean a couple of different things. It could simply mean he waved his hand and that was the signal for his army to go to work and his army tore it down, or it can mean him waving his hand literally tore down the walls. We just don't really know what he did. But the second part of the excerpt is definitely true. Using the power of his staff, which is powered by a Catan shard, he was able to one-shot a Warlord Titan. which is an absolutely top tier feat. With all of that in mind, let's move into how the Silent King scales within the greater Warhammer 40K universe. So just like with the Quarks, we're going to do a bit of speculating here. When I was writing this video, I almost broke the Silent King into two different forms, to scale one with and without the Dais of Dominion. But I saw how long the script was, and I decided that might be a little too autistic to tackle. So in this video, we're keeping it to one and one form only. With his war gear and intellect alone, the Silent King sits well above most of the mortal and even semi-divine tiers of the setting. His scepter of eternal glory channels the power of a Catan shard directly, and his body is the most advanced and durable Necron form in existence. It is built to withstand forces beyond most mortals' comprehension. With that alone, he's comfortably above Space Marines, including elite chapters like the Grey Knights, Custodes, Orc War Bosses, Tau Commanders, Greater Demons, since he's entirely immune to the warp and its corruptive effects, and even Avatars of Cain. That brings us to the Primarchs.
Oh shit, here we go again.
If the herd remembers correctly, in the last video I placed the Quarks above the base Primarchs. Before moving on, I feel like I should address that, because someone in the comments of the Quark video brought up a very good point, and I'm going to address it here. When I talk about the Primarchs or reference them broadly, I'm speaking about them during the height of the Great Crusade, what your favorite cow likes to call their base Primarch forms. No demonic amps, no warp blessings, no divine power-ups, just your standard, genetically engineered, galaxy-conquering, daddy-issued space demigods. Throughout the Horus Heresy and the wider 40K timeline, the Primarchs, being inherently tied to the warp, evolve like goddamn Pokemon. They grow stronger, more attuned to the Immaterium, and in some cases, become straight-up gods themselves. We already talked about Sanguinius last time, so I won't milk that example again. But this power evolution happens with nearly every Primarch, except for, Ferrus Manus, since he quite literally loses his head during the Horus Heresy. Take Fulgrim for example. Everyone's favorite ketamine abuser. In my eyes, the dude has like 5 forms. Base Fulgrim, Layer Blade Fulgrim, Possessed Fulgrim, Post-Possession Fulgrim, and Demon Primarch Fulgrim. Maybe that's a little overkill, but you get what I mean. Each form is a different level of power, influence, and warp corruption. So when you say, Sanguinius could one-shot them, what are you talking about? You're probably referencing his Eternity Gate form, where he killed Angron and Kabanda in the span of 10 minutes. I hope that makes sense, my beloved cows. But before I turn this entire Silent King video into another Primarch discussion, let's get back on topic here. So where were we? Ah yes, the Primarchs. They're demigods, engineered super beings capable of feats that defy reason. But even at their peak, they're still biological. They can bleed, tire, and die. The Silent King, on the other hand, is something entirely different. A transdimensional intelligence encased in an indestructible shell of living metal, wielding weapons forged with the power of a literal star god. Even if we only consider his scepter of eternal glory, it alone would give him the raw destructive output to overwhelm a Primarch in direct combat. So yes, if that fateful duel between Rabute Gilliman and the Silent King had actually taken place, there's a very strong chance that the Silent King would have absolutely dog-walked him, Emperor's sword or not. Gilliman may be a tactical genius, but Zarek is the one who led his entire species to victory against the Catan. That easily places the Silent King above the Primarchs. And naturally, the next level up from there is the Demon Primarchs, the warp-enhanced, physically superior, and utterly corrupted forms of the traitor Primarchs. We don't really need to get too deep here. The Silent King is completely immune to the warp thanks to the Dais of Dominion. That means all psychic trickery, sorcery, and reality warping chaos nonsense the Demon Primarchs rely on becomes utterly useless.
Loser! You're a loser! Are you feeling sorry for yourself? Well, you should be, because you are dirt! You make me sick, you big baby!
Their very essence, since they are made of the warp, wouldn't even be able to register against him. When it comes to a direct confrontation, it's not close. The Silent King utterly negates them. Combine that with his advanced Necron technology and insane durability, and it's safe to say he is comfortably above both regular and Demon Primarchs, no contest. So that leaves us with the beings even above Primarchs. I do want to note, before moving on, that the Silent King likely outclasses the Eldar Phoenix Lords as well, but I'm holding off power scaling them for now. They'll be coming in another video. So who is above the Primarchs and Demon Primarchs? Well, if we look outside the War in Heaven, which featured the Quarks and the Proto-Eldar, who probably had psychers close to the Emperor's level, there really aren't many individuals of comparable scale. True to the setting, we just don't see the same level of singular powerful beings as we did during the War in Heaven. But if we consider the vast sweep of 40k, including both the War in Heaven and the Horus Heresy, there are a few characters and their various forms to examine here. Hold on to your butts, folks. This may get really confusing and a little too complicated, but we're gonna do it anyways. As we've seen so far, it's certain that the Silent King ranks among the strongest characters in the current setting. But where exactly does he sit? The key contenders above Primarch level are full-on C'tans, C'tan Shards, the Emperor of Mankind in 30k, the Emperor in the current setting trapped on the Golden Throne, Ascended, God Emperor Horus Lupercal, and of course the various gods, Mork, Gork, Kegarak, the Chaos Gods, and those like them. Just like last time, let's eliminate what he isn't. He is definitely not scaling above the gods of the 40k universe. For one, they are warp entities, meaning you can't really straight up kill them. Their existence is tied to the immaterium, so you can't engage them in purely physical combat. The only real way to eliminate them is to destroy the sentient beings in the material world that empower them. I will say that there are some cases where warp gods descended into the material realm, specifically during the War in Heaven, where the Eldar gods were summoned to fight alongside their people, as we see in the Liber Chaotica Slaanesh. In this, we see Eldar champions like Eldesh and Ulthish march to war against the Necrons, the C'tan, and their servants, summoning Eldar deities like Cain, the mighty god of war, to battle alongside them. Another example of this is Kegarak, the Laughing God, who likely resides within the Webway. But if the Silent King were to face any of these warp entities directly, he likely wouldn't last long. His powers are centered in the material realm, not the immaterium. That leaves us with the other heavy hitters. Full-on C'tans, C'tan Shards, the Emperor in 30k, the Emperor trapped on the Golden Throne in the current setting, and God Emperor Horus Lupercal. Correct me if I'm wrong though, folks, but according to my calculations, these are the strongest beings across the 40k universe. Since Mr. Silence's greatest feat was fighting and delivering a lethal blow to a C'tan, let's next dive into what exactly the C'tan are, their powers, abilities, and the kind of scale they operate on. I'm going to try to keep this as concise as possible because I feel like I'll be going over the C'tan in another video, which will be absurdly long. But for now, let's just go over the Star God Essentials. According to Deathwatch, The Outer Reach, during the War in Heaven, the C'tan and their Necron legions unleashed weapons so advanced they could reshape the fabric of time and space to their will. At the height of their power, glutted on the life force of the Necron tier, the C'tan were near unstoppable, unleashing forces beyond comprehension. Planets were razed, suns extinguished, and entire star systems devoured by black holes conjured by their reality warping abilities.
Boy, that escalated quickly.
They were gods made manifest, cosmic predators who fed on stars and life itself. From this I can gather, and this is totally debatable, that they are and were the strongest beings in the material realm. Now let's look at what happened after they were shattered. From the 8th edition Necron Codex, despite the reduced and wholly fettered state, C'tan Shards are still beings of near unlimited power. They can manifest energy blasts, control the minds of lesser beings, manipulate the flow of time, and banish foes to alternate realities. Even a shard, a fragment of their true selves, is a being of near limitless potential, limited only by its imagination and fragmented memory of the greater being it once was. A single C'tan Shard can vaporize tanks, twist time, or reduce enemies to primordial sludge with a flick of its will. The only way to truly destroy one is by breaching its necrodermis, the hyperphysical living metal shell that cages its essence. Once that's breached, the shard detonates in a blinding pulse of starfire, scattering its essence across the galaxy. So across the 40k lore, who has actually managed to defeat one of these? That's a very short and very elite list. First, we have the Silent King, who of course allegedly destroyed Nyadra Zatha, a full C'tan. Then we have his mentally unstable homies, Orkan the Diviner and Trazyn the Infinite, who managed to take down multiple Catan shards at once. Though to be fair, Orkan was juiced up to near Catan levels himself during that encounter. Third, we have the Emperor of Mankind from 40K, who defeated the largest shard of the Void Dragon. And finally, fucking Kato Sicarius.
You can't keep getting away with this! You can't keep getting away with it!
Yes, I, Kato Sicarius, defeated a Catan shard. Albeit he did it with a vortex grenade, not in straight up hand-to-hand combat, which would have been silly, but I wouldn't put it past the Ultramarines, written by Matt Ward. Of course, the Ultramarines had to make an appearance here. All these figures fought shards or fragments of the Catan, though the Silent King stands apart as the only known being to have faced and slain a full Catan at the height of their power. With this knowledge, I think we can easily place the Silent King above a Catan shard. While Catan shards vary wildly in power depending on how fragmented they are, I still believe the Silent King scales above them regardless. After all, they're not complete beings, just broken pieces of what they once were. With his advanced body, mastery of Necron technology, and sheer brilliance, he can easily hold his own one-on-one against one of these legendary shards. Which brings us to the heavy hitters still on the table. The Emperor in 30K and 40K, God Emperor Horus, and the Catan before they were shattered. Let's go through each of these and scale them against the Silent King. Starting with the Emperor in the current setting. This one is easier than the others. The Silent King isn't beating him. The Emperor at this point is more warp than man, operating on a completely different metaphysical level. His greatest feats include saving Rabute Gilliman from across the literal galaxy and burning Nurgle's garden during the Plague Wars, a feat that, to my knowledge, has never been replicated. Please correct me if I'm wrong here, but actually wounding a Chaos God's realm has never ever been seen across the setting, so we can easily place the Silent King below the Emperor in 40K. Another easy elimination is Horus in his God Emperor form, who is one of the strongest characters 40K has ever seen. He was essentially the host for all 4 Chaos Gods at that moment, capable of manipulating time and space, and he literally created a warp rift around Terra during the siege. He was so powerful that the Emperor was going to ascend to godhood just to challenge him. I mean, do I really need to say more? He's above the Silent King, no question. A little autistic thought your favorite cow just had. I would love to place this Horus against a Catan, the master of the Immaterium and the master of the material world against each other. I'm not going to do it in this video because it would add literally an hour, but I'm very curious to what you guys think. Who would win, a Catan or Horus at the height of his power? Let me know down in the comments. But now we're left with 2 heavy hitters to scale against, the Emperor in 30K and a full Catan. So does the Silent King stand above them? Well, first off, the Catan are godlike stellar entities, beings that, like I stated earlier, manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe, reshape matter, and bend reality itself in the material realm. We know from the Necron 9th edition codex that the Silent King supposedly defeated one of these beings, not just a shard, but a full Catan. However, the only evidence we have is an etching on a wall, which makes the fight impossible to confirm. That's what makes this part of the video a bit more speculative and a little autistic in the cow lore sense. Even though it's stated that he defeated one, the lack of context or confirmation makes it tough to take at full face value. So I'm gonna say this, and it might be a little controversial. A full Catan likely scales above the Silent King.
This is bullshit.
But before you start mooing at me in the comments, hear me out first. I'm not saying he's leagues below them. He's still quite close. Here's how I picture their fight went down. The Necrons, led by the Silent King, were probably in direct combat with the Catan. The Silent King, who is explicitly stated in the 9th edition codex to lead from the front, would have been physically present on the battlefield fighting in person. That means he is durable enough to withstand hits from a Catan and strong enough to fight back. Yeah, I'm kind of grasping at a few metallic straws here, but it checks out. So overall, I'd place the Silent King as close to, but definitely below a full Catan. The literal gods of the material universe. Saying he's above them would be a stretch, but he's close to their weight class. When I was writing this script, I was really trying to figure out a way that the Silent King could possibly scale above the Catan, but it just really doesn't make sense for him to be considered stronger than them. The Catan, at the end of the day, are the physical manifestation of the material realm. Therefore, it would be quite silly to suggest that the Silent King would be stronger than even them. And that brings us to the Emperor in 30K, the real reason you're watching this video. So let's quickly, yes, emphasis on quickly, scale the Emperor from 30K. We could really go down the cow hole with this fella, but let's save the deep power scaling for another day. The Emperor is universally recognized as one of the most powerful psychers in existence, capable of feats that border on godhood, including extreme telekinesis, telepathy, immortality, reality warping, and time and space manipulation. Some of his most impressive feats include defeating a major fragment of the Void Dragon, arguably one of the strongest Catan shards, banishing an obscene number of demons in the webway by summoning an army of flaming space marines, possibly even recreating Ferrus Manus in the process, and dueling Horus Lupercal across time and space, though he was notably weaker than that version of the Balding Menace. Now, comparing this iteration of the Emperor to the Silent King makes things pretty damn interesting. The Emperor's power stems from the warp, the immaterial realm of souls, thought, and psychic will. The Silent King, meanwhile, is completely impervious to the warp. His Dais of Dominion grants him near complete immunity to the warp's influence, effectively neutralizing a massive portion of the Emperor's arsenal. While in raw metaphysical power, the Emperor likely surpasses the Silent King. His mastery of the warp and his reality-bending feats are on another level. However, though, folks, the Silent King's anti-warp resistance, technological supremacy, and near indestructible form make him one of the few beings who could genuinely counter or even withstand the Emperor's psychic dominance. Now, I don't want to make some flabbergasting claim like the Emperor is weaker than the Silent King, because it's hard to say that's the case. Both of these characters don't exactly have a ton of recorded feats, which is an insane thing to say about the Emperor in 30K, but throughout the Horus Heresy, he spends most of his time stuck on his golden toilet. And on the other hand, we have the Silent King, who really only has 2 feats across his 65 million year lifespan. Games Workshop, you're really making my job hard here, aren't you? The Emperor does demonstrate incredible power when he faces down against Horus Lupercal during the climax of the Siege of Terra, as throughout this battle it's clear to see that the Emperor is a master of psychic abilities, able to use them in various different ways, tricking Horus multiple times to gain the advantage. So although he uses strategy and guile to defeat the Balding Menace, it's still pretty remarkable that he was able to stand one-on-one against this terrifying form of Horus, showing that he is a master of psychic abilities and easily cements his place as one of the strongest beings in 40K lore. But what if these two were to face off against each other? Who would come out the victor? Well, if the two faced off against each other, the Silent King's anti-warp design kinda just gives him the straight up edge. He is literally built to counter beings like the Emperor. Like seriously, the Silent King gave himself the biggest amp against psychic users by moving around on a Roomba that completely nullifies the warp. It's like he knew this matchup was coming. In spite of that though, on a broader power scaling level, I'd say the two are very close. Both belong in what I'd call Emperor tier, sitting just below a complete Catan in overall cosmic power. It just comes down to the fact that they're both incredibly powerful individuals, and that one is completely geared to fight warp beings, and the other only uses warp powers, which makes this matchup completely unfair to the Emperor. I just thought of a great metaphor to use for this situation, and if it doesn't make sense, it's all the gouchies going to my brain. Let's say I am the most proficient fire wizard at fire school, but I am going against a water mage who is amazing at their job as well. My fire magic is super powerful, but anytime I shoot it, the water mage is going to completely nullify it. It's your classic Pokemon matchup, fire beats water. So with the Silent King being able to completely nullify the Emperor's whole arsenal, it obviously means that the Silent King could probably beat the Emperor back in the Horus Heresy days. But both of them have the firepower to rival each other. The Silent King wields a literal Catan shard, while the Emperor has the powers to overwhelm a Catan shard.
You're not making any sense at all.
The only true way to figure out which one power scales higher than the other would be to figure out how strong the Void Dragon was when the Emperor fought him. Only then could you put one over the other, but since we don't have that information, I'm not going to make a huge leap and say that the Silent King power scales higher than the Emperor. I hope I'm making sense here, folks. Back to my amazing metaphor earlier, the Fire Mage and the Water Mage are both at equal powers. One just counters the other perfectly. So, technically, the Silent King is stronger than the Emperor, but when it comes to comparing power levels, they are both almost identical, I would say. Did I make your brain hurt there? Cause I just gave myself a self-inflicted concussion. However, if we're talking about the Dark King, the ascendant form of the Emperor, then it's a no contest. If you haven't watched that video where I power scale the Dark King, he is presented by Dan Abnett in The End and the Death to be the strongest character in all of Warhammer 40K. The ultimate end of the universe as we know it. But we're not touching that today, guys, because frankly, even thinking about that gives me a brain aneurysm. So to summarize, the Silent King stands as one of the strongest beings in all of Warhammer 40K. As the ruler of arguably the most advanced and dangerous race in the galaxy, a civilization that if fully awakened, could rival even the gods, he's a force that demands respect. Armed with his Catan forged weaponry, his enhanced immortal body, and the Dais of Dominion, the second most broken chair in 40K, right behind the Golden Throne, the Silent King scales well above Primarchs and Demon Primarchs, placing him in the same league as the Emperor of Mankind during the 30K era. And with that settled, let's talk about the Silent King's actual plans and what would happen if he actually pulled them off. After returning from the void beyond the stars, the Silent King's got three major goals. First, he wants to unite the Necron dynasties, which considering how prideful and ancient these metallic fossils are, is the galaxy equivalent of herding atomically charged cats. Second, he wants to create a galaxy-wide paranexus, a network of massive null zones that completely suppresses the warp. This is the ultimate checkmate against chaos. And finally, his most personal goal, reversing biotransference. He actually wants to restore the Necron tier to their biological forms, undoing the curse that damned his people to eternal metal servitude. It's the one shred of guilt left in him, a desperate attempt to fix what he broke. So what happens if the Silent King actually succeeds? If he somehow manages to unite all the Necron dynasties, which, let's be real, would be tough with Emotech and Orkan in the mix. Then we're looking at the return of the full might of the Necrons from the war in heaven. And in the simplest terms possible, the galaxy would be absolutely fucked.
Well, we're fucked.
No faction could stand against them, not the Imperium, not Chaos, not even the Eldar, and maybe not even the Tyranids, though the Bugs might be the only wildcard since we don't know their true numbers. But everyone else obliterated. The Necron's technology is beyond anything the current galaxy can muster, and under the command of the Silent King, one of the strongest and most calculating beings in existence, they'd be unstoppable. If the Silent King's Paranexus plan succeeded, things would get even worse. A galaxy-spanning network of null zones would choke the warp into submission. Chaos would be utterly screwed, demons, psychers, and warp-based travel alone would all collapse under the crushing silence. It would be the end of the gods' influence in real space, and likely the death of the Imperium's ability to even function. The Emperor's precious Astronomicon would go dark, and the warp would rot into quiet, lifeless void. And then, the reversal of biotransference. If the Silent King somehow found a way to restore the Necron tier to their biological forms, it'd be a pretty strange twist. On one hand, it would nerf the Necrons since they lose their near-immortal, machine-like durability, but on the other hand, it would finally free them from the eternal curse of undeath, the hollow existence that's driven many Necron minds into madness. It would save their souls even if it cost them their godlike power. If the Silent King actually pulled this all off, it would end it. The Necrons would reign supreme once more, the warp would be silenced, chaos would be destroyed, and the rest of the galaxy forced to kneel before the true rulers of reality. Wow, that's terrifying. But that just about does it for this autistic fallen cow deep dive into the Silent King, one of the most fascinating and mysterious figures in all of 40K. Another unknown lurking in the galaxy, but if my calculations are even remotely correct, he's sitting comfortably around Emperor tier levels of power, making him one of the strongest beings in the entire setting. And before we wrap this all up, Thank you all so damn much for 10,000 subscribers. Seriously, I started this channel just wanting to talk about dumb Warhammer power scaling and other nonsense, and now there are 10,000 of us. That's insane, and I can't thank you guys enough. To celebrate, I'll be dropping a 10K special next week, and it's gonna be a super duper long one. We're going big or going home. Star Wars vs. Warhammer 40K. Which universe is stronger? It's gonna be an all-out galactic showdown, so make sure you bring your popcorn to that one. As always, a massive thanks to everyone supporting the channel, especially my Patreon and YouTube members, Ryania Basket, Omar, Ritter S, and Posse Paul, Soft Use, Keydry, Musty, Nico149, and William Strong. You guys are the real MVPs. I'm thinking of tackling the Phoenix Lords next on this historic Xenos power scaling run, but if you guys have other ideas, drop them in the comments below. As always, my favorite herd, stay milked, stay autistic, and I'll see you in the next video.